The morning my daughter was supposed to get married, I sat in my car 2 blocks from the church, wearing the navy dress she had told me not to wear. Across the street, white roses were being carried through the side entrance in glass buckets. Bridesmaids in champagne gowns hurried up the stone steps. Then I saw Audrey. My only child stepped out of a black town car with her veil folded over one arm, her hair pinned into soft waves, her face calm, bright, and expensive. She looked beautiful. She also looked right through my windshield and pretended not to see me. I thought that would be the moment that broke me. But then Graham Whitaker, the groom, walked out of the church holding one cream-colored envelope in his hand. My envelope. He had opened it. I knew because his face had changed. 2 days earlier, Audrey had stood in my kitchen and said, "Mom, I need you to understand something. You being there will make everyone uncomfortable." I had been stirring tomato sauce in a dented pot when she said it. Canned tomatoes, garlic, onion, and sale-price ground beef, because even after all these years, I still cooked like money could vanish if I blinked. I turned the heat down before I looked at her. Audrey stood beside my refrigerator in a beige wool coat that probably cost more than my first car. At first, I thought something had gone wrong with the wedding. I was not ready for my daughter to look at me like I was the problem she had finally found the courage to solve. "What do you mean, everyone?" I asked. She closed her eyes. "I mean Graham's family," she said, "and some of the hospital board people, and my clients. It's not just a wedding, Mom. It's a social event." "A social event," I repeated. "Please don't make it sound ugly." "Isn't it ugly?" I asked. Audrey swallowed. "You know I love you." "People always say that before they ask you to bleed quietly." I wiped my hands on a towel. "Say what you came to say." She looked relieved, and that hurt more than the sentence. "I think it would be better if you didn't come." "Better for who?" I asked. Her eyes filled. "For everyone." There it was, the kindest cruel answer. I turned back to the stove because the sauce was bubbling too hard. "Your grandmother would have slapped me from the grave if I ever said something like that." Audrey flinched. "See? That's exactly what I mean." "What?" "The way you talk, the way you say things. You don't understand how it comes across." "How does it come across?" She pressed her lips together. "Embarrassing." The spoon slipped out of my hand and hit the pot with a small metal sound. Not loud, not dramatic, just enough to mark the moment. Audrey looked ashamed, but not enough to take it back. I stood there in my work shoes, my hair still smelling faintly like fryer oil from the breakfast shift, and thought about every time I had tried to become less visible for her. I thought that was mercy. Now I understood it had been training. "I'm not saying you embarrass me as a person," she said. I looked at her. She heard herself then. "That came out wrong." "No," I said. "It came out honest." She told me Graham's mother had asked what I did for work, where I lived, and why my name wasn't on the rehearsal dinner speech draft. "So tell her," I said. I did. "And?" She got quiet. "Well," I said, "we can't have that. This isn't about you being a diner manager." "Then what is it about?" "It's about how you carry it." There it was, how I carried it, as if poverty was a purse I had chosen because it matched my shoes. "You mean I don't hide it well enough? I mean you make everything sound like a fight." "That's because everything was won. Not anymore. For you." Her face hardened. "There it is. You resent me." I wanted to deny it, but a piece of it was true. I had never said, "You owe me," not directly. But I had handed her love wrapped in receipts. I knew how to provide. I did not always know how to stop presenting the bill. Still, there is a difference between a mother's clumsy pride and a daughter's public shame. "Does Graham know you're doing this?" I asked. Her fingers tightened around her phone. "Yes." That answer came too quickly. Does he agree? He wants me to be comfortable. Comfortable, I said. He thinks it might be better if we avoid tension. Tension. Is that what I am now? She whispered. Please don't make this harder. A strange calm moved through me. Maybe I had been afraid of losing her for so long that when the loss finally stood in my kitchen, it felt almost familiar. Will you tell people I'm sick? I asked. Her face went pale. What? At the wedding, when someone asks where the bride's mother is. Mom, don't. What story did you choose? She wiped under one eye. We were going to say you weren't feeling well. Not only uninvited, hidden. Turned into a polite little illness so no one would have to say the bride's mother had been removed from her own daughter's wedding, like a stain from a tablecloth. I walked to the junk drawer and took out the cream envelope I had been saving for the wedding day. Audrey watched me. What is that? Nothing for you. What do you mean? It's for Graham. That made her afraid. What's in it? A letter. About what? Family. My family or his? I did not answer. She reached for it. I moved it behind my back. For 1 second, we were Audrey at 16 and me holding a report card she did not want me to see. Mom, she said carefully, don't use my wedding to punish me. I should have told her then. I should have opened the envelope on the kitchen table. I should have shown her the legal release, the hospital invoice, the settlement check, and the old newspaper clipping with her father's name misspelled under the headline, Local Contractor Dies After Fall at Whitaker Site. I should have told her that Graham Whitaker's family had been tied to ours long before she met him at a charity brunch. I should have told her that his father, Dr. Preston Whitaker, had sat in a lawyer's office 20 years earlier while I signed a document promising not to sue after my husband died on a construction site owned through a Whitaker Development Trust. I should have told her that the money which paid for her private school, her tutoring, her first apartment in Chicago, and half the Polish she now used to distance herself from me had come from my silence. But I didn't, because silence had become my most practiced sin. So I said, "Go home, Audrey." She stared at me. "That's it? What else do you want?" "I want you to say you understand." "No, honey. You want me to bless it." Her face crumpled. "Why can't you just once make something easy?" That sentence broke something old in me, because it sounded like me. Children learn the language of love from us. Sometimes they use it later as a weapon. I opened the back door. "You're asking me to leave?" she whispered. "You already left," I said. "You're just still standing in my kitchen." She walked out without hugging me. The wedding invitation stayed on my counter. Cream paper, gold letters. Audrey Morales and Graham Whitaker request the honor of your presence. Your presence. I stood there for a long time after her car pulled away. Then I put the sauce in a container, washed the pot, sat at the kitchen table, and addressed the envelope to Graham. Not Audrey. Graham. Because some truths are too heavy to hand to the child you failed to prepare. And some men should know the ground they are standing on before they call it love. My husband, Daniel Morales, died when Audrey was 10. He fell from the 3rd level of the Whitaker Medical Arts Pavilion, a construction project tied to the same Whitaker family my daughter was now marrying into. At the hospital, they handed me his work boots in a plastic bag, brown leather, white dust in the creases. One lace snapped and tied into a knot because Daniel said buying new laces before payday was how the rich get you. A week after the funeral, Preston Whitaker's lawyer called. He spoke gently, which meant he knew exactly how much damage his client could survive. The site report was ugly. Safety railings had been removed. Daniel's crew had complained twice. A supervisor signed off anyway. That supervisor worked for a company connected to Whitaker Development Partners. A good lawyer could have made them bleed, but a good lawyer cost money. So did time. So did breathing. The Whitakers offered a settlement, enough to pay off our little house, enough for Audrey's school, braces, health insurance, a used car, and college if I was careful. There was one condition: confidentiality, no public blame, no lawsuit, no interviews, no future claims. I signed. I told myself I did it for Audrey. That was true. It was also true that I was afraid. Then I spent 20 years pretending the money did not burn my hands. I told Audrey her father had left insurance. That was my third lie. Insurance sounded honorable. Settlement sounded dirty. Like someone had bought the right to keep walking past us with clean shoes. Audrey became everything Daniel and I once dreamed about. Smart, driven, careful with words, good at rooms I was afraid to enter. She won internships, then jobs with office windows and coffee machines that made drinks with foam art. She changed how she dressed, then how she spoke, then how she introduced me. My mom works in hospitality, she told someone once. Hospitality. I managed a diner where two fry cooks hated each other, and old men called me sweetheart when they wanted free refills. The first time Audrey brought Graham Whitaker to my house, I wanted to like him. He helped clear plates. He asked about Daniel. He noticed the picture of Audrey wearing her father's hard hat. Then I asked, "Any relation to the hospital Whitakers?" Graham paused. "My father is Preston Whitaker." The roast chicken still sat between us. The ceiling fan still clicked. But I felt Daniel's boots in my lap again. Graham asked, "Do you know my father?" I smiled. No. That was my fourth lie. Later, Audrey cornered me in the kitchen and whispered, "Please don't bring up anything weird tonight. Old local stuff, Dad's accident. Just don't." That was when I realized she knew more than I thought. Not the truth, but enough to be ashamed of the shadow. So I swallowed the truth again. Audrey and Graham got engaged 8 months later. The wedding planning became a slow lesson in disappearing. Vivian Whitaker smiled at me like we had never met, even though she had sat beside her husband 20 years earlier while I signed the settlement papers. After that, the venue became too small. My guest list shrank, and my speech was edited until it sounded like a press release from a woman who had once met her daughter professionally. At the rehearsal dinner, I sat at table 9 beside Graham's aunt, who asked twice whether I was local staff. Later, I overheard Audrey arguing with Graham in the hallway. "She's your mother," he said. "I know," Audrey whispered, "but she makes things messy. She talks about struggle and sacrifice, and people don't know what to do with it. I have spent my entire life trying not to be pitied." I had thought pity was help. Audrey had experienced it as a cage. Graham said, "Linda didn't do that to you." Audrey's laugh cracked. She built my whole identity around it. I stepped back before they saw me. Not because she was right, because she was not entirely wrong. The next morning she came to my kitchen and uninvited me. That night after she left, I opened the shoebox in my closet. Inside were the things I had never shown Audrey: Daniel's union card, the folded flag from his funeral, the newspaper clipping, the settlement documents, a photo of Audrey asleep on Daniel's chest, a canceled check from Whitaker Development Partners to Linda Morales for $410,000. The amount looked large on paper. It had not felt large spread across 20 years of survival. Behind those documents was a letter I had written when Audrey turned 18 and never gave her. The first line read, "Audrey, if you are reading this, it means I finally found the courage to tell you how your father's death paid for parts of your life." I hated that sentence, but it was true. I placed copies into the cream envelope, not originals. I am sentimental, not stupid. Then I wrote one page to Graham. Graham, my daughter has decided I should not attend your wedding because I embarrass her. I am not sending this to punish her. I am sending it because your family and mine have already been connected by silence once, and I will not let my daughter enter another silence without at least one person knowing the truth. 20 years ago, my husband, Daniel Morales, died at a construction site tied to your family's medical development project. Your father's company settled with me privately. I accepted because I was young, broke, afraid, and raising a child alone. I told Audrey the money came from insurance. That was my choice. I thought I was protecting her from feeling bought. Maybe I was protecting myself from admitting I had taken the money. Your mother remembers me. Your father remembers me. If they say they do not, ask them why Vivian Whitaker corrected the spelling of my last name on page 6 of the release. Audrey does not know the full truth. She only knows enough to be ashamed of the wrong person. I am not asking you to fix this. I am asking you not to marry my daughter inside a lie your family helped build. Linda Morales. I sealed the envelope before I could lose my nerve. The next morning, I drove to Graham's downtown office and gave it to the security guard. I did not go upstairs. Revenge stories never mention what happens after you do something life-changing. You still have to clock in. I spent the afternoon refilling coffee, correcting schedules, and telling a new server that crying in the walk-in was allowed, but only for 5 minutes during lunch rush. At 4:38, my phone rang. Graham, then Audrey, then Vivian Whitaker. I answered none of them. Not because I was brave, because I knew if I heard Audrey cry, I might apologize for the truth. At 7:12 that evening, someone knocked on my door. Graham stood on my porch, rain dampening his hair. He held the envelope in one hand and the settlement release in the other. His face looked older than it had 2 days before. Mrs. Morales, he said, may I speak with you? No, he blinked. I understand. I don't think you do. My father admitted it. That sentence landed harder than I expected. Graham said, my mother admitted she recognized you. Good for her memory. I'm sorry. I laughed softly. Men like Graham are always sorry for things they inherited after the inheritance becomes inconvenient. You didn't push my husband off that building, I said. No, but my family buried what happened. Yes, and I benefited from that. I looked at him then. His eyes were red. He held the papers too tightly. For the first time, he did not look like a Whitaker. He looked like a man standing inside a house he had just learned was built over bones. Audrey doesn't know, he said. No, she's devastated. Is she devastated because her father died on your family's site, or because the wedding might be ruined? He flinched. Good. Some questions deserve to leave marks, he said quietly. Both. At least he was honest. I started to close the door. He placed one hand against it, not pushing, just stopping. She's asking for you. That almost worked. My daughter needs me. How many times had that sentence dragged me out of bed, into overtime, across town, into silence? I asked, did she ask before or after Vivian realized people might find out? Graham looked down. There it was. I closed the door until the chain pulled tight. Tell Audrey, I hope she has a beautiful wedding. Are you coming? No. She was wrong. Yes. She knows that now. I looked at the envelope. No. Now she knows why being wrong may cost her something. The next morning, I drove to the church anyway. I told myself I only wanted to see if she went through with it. That was a lie. I wanted one glimpse of her. I wanted to sit in my car and be a coward privately. The church was old stone and stained glass. Audrey chose it because Graham's grandparents had married there. Not because of God, because of history. Rich people love history when it flatters them. I parked under a maple tree and watched guests arrive. Vivian Whitaker stepped out of a black car wearing silver. Preston followed, stiff-backed and pale. He looked smaller than I remembered. Power always looks smaller when it has to explain itself. Then Audrey arrived. For 1 second, every cruel word disappeared. She was my baby again. The girl who ate cereal from a mixing bowl because regular bowls were too small. The girl who pressed stickers onto my work badge so I would look pretty at the diner. The girl who slept with a stuffed rabbit named Mr. Lawsuit because Daniel once brought home a cartoon lawyer magnet, and she misunderstood the word. Her veil moved in the wind. She turned, and she saw me. I know she did. Her face changed. Not much, just enough. Then Vivian touched her elbow, and Audrey looked away. A mother can survive many things. That was nearly not one of them. I gripped the steering wheel. Then the church doors opened again, and Graham came out holding the envelope. He crossed the street and tapped my window. I rolled it down 3 inches. "Linda," he said, "Audrey wants to speak to you." I looked past him. My daughter stood at the top of the church steps, frozen between 2 lives. One where she walked inside and became Audrey Whitaker in front of everyone who mattered to her. One where she walked down those steps toward the woman she had tried to erase. I said, "Then she knows where I am." Graham turned and looked back at her. Everyone looked at Audrey. That was the cruel part. The choice had become public. I had not meant for it to happen that way. That is what I tell myself. It is mostly true. But somewhere dark in me, some tired, humiliated part, wanted her to feel the weight of people watching. I am not proud of that. Audrey stood still. Vivian leaned toward her, whispering. Audrey shook her head. Then she lifted the front of her dress and walked down the church steps. Gasps moved through the guests like wind through dry leaves. She reached my car and did not speak right away. Neither did I. Audrey said, "You came." "No," I said. I parked. Her mouth trembled. "I didn't know." "I know. Why didn't you tell me?" There it was, the question I deserved, the question that had waited 20 years. I looked at my hands, older than I felt, dry at the knuckles, nails short because polish never lasted through work. I thought I was protecting you. From what? From feeling like your life was paid for by your father's death. Her face collapsed. Truth rarely waits for good lighting. Audrey whispered, "Was it?" "Partly." She turned away, pressing one hand over her mouth. Graham stood a few feet back, giving us space but not enough to escape the truth. Audrey said, "All those schools, the apartment, the clothes for interviews." "Yes. You said Dad had insurance." I lied. She looked at me then, and anger entered her grief. Good. Anger meant she was still my daughter. "How could you?" "I know." "No, you don't get to say that calmly. You let me build my life on a story that wasn't true." "Yes. And then you sent it to Graham instead of me." That was the blow I could not dodge. "I was angry," I said. She flinched. "I was angry and hurt and proud. I wanted someone in that family to have to look at what they helped bury." "So you used my wedding. You uninvited me from it." Her face went white. We stared at each other. There it was, not mother and daughter. 2 women with knives, each pretending the other had drawn first. Audrey whispered, "I said something terrible." "Yes, but you held this truth over my life for 20 years. "Yes." A tear slipped down her cheek. "I don't know how to forgive that." "You don't have to do it today." Behind her, Vivian came down the steps. Preston followed. Vivian's face was composed, but her eyes were sharp. "Audrey," she said gently, "we should go inside before this becomes more uncomfortable." Audrey turned. Something in her expression changed. For years I had watched my daughter adjust herself around people like Vivian, soften her voice, straighten her spine, laugh at the right volume, hide the parts of herself she feared would make the room go quiet. Now the room was already quiet. There was nothing left to protect. Audrey asked, "Did you know?" Vivian's smile held. "This is not the place. Did you know my father died on your family's construction site?" The guests at the top of the steps began whispering. Vivian's face tightened. "Audrey, answer me." Preston stepped forward. "It was a tragic accident." Audrey laughed once. It sounded like me. That made my chest ache. "An accident you paid my mother not to talk about?" Graham said softly. "Audrey," she turned on him. "You knew since yesterday?" He nodded. "And you didn't tell me?" "I tried. You wouldn't answer." That stopped her. Vivian's voice became crisp. "We can discuss this privately after the ceremony." Audrey stared at her. "After?" "The guests are waiting." The guests, not the truth, not Daniel, not the woman in the car, not the bride whose childhood had just been cracked open in front of a church. The guests. Audrey looked back at me. For the first time in years, I saw the little girl who used to ask if we could leave parties early because her tights itched. "Mom," she said, just that, not an apology, not forgiveness, a call. I opened the car door. My knees had stiffened. The navy dress pulled at my waist. My drugstore makeup probably had not survived the morning. When I stepped out, several guests looked me over. I saw what they saw, a middle-aged woman in an inexpensive dress. Work hands, hair sprayed too firmly because humidity had betrayed me before. Embarrassing. Maybe. But present. Audrey looked at my dress. "You wore it." "You said not to." A broken laugh escaped her. Then she cried. Not delicately. Not like Vivian would approve of. She cried with her mouth bent and her shoulders shaking, and when she stepped toward me, I almost stepped back because I was afraid of wanting her too much. She put her arms around me. I held her. The bouquet crushed white flowers against my chest. People watched. "Let them," Audrey whispered. "I'm sorry. I know. I was ashamed. I know. Not just of you." That made me open my eyes. She pulled back. I was ashamed of needing all of it. The scholarships, the help, the sad looks, the story. I hated feeling like everyone could see what I came from before they saw me. I nodded. I should have listened. "You should have told me." "Yes." She wiped her face, ruining some very expensive makeup. "I don't know what to do." That was honest. More honest than any vow waiting inside the church. Graham stepped closer. "Audrey, we can postpone." Vivian inhaled sharply. Audrey looked at him. "Postpone?" His eyes were wet. "I don't want to marry you while you're drowning." That was the first thing he had said that made me truly like him. Audrey stared at him. "What about everyone inside?" He looked back at the church, then at his parents, then at the envelope. "They can eat the salmon." A laugh moved through the guests before anyone could stop it. Even I smiled. Vivian did not. "Graham," she said, warning in every syllable. He faced her. "No." One small word, a son becoming inconvenient. Preston said, "This could damage the foundation." Graham looked at him. "A man died." Preston's jaw tightened. "A long time ago." Audrey flinched. Before I could speak, she did. "My father died," she said. "Not a long time ago. Not in this conversation." The church bells rang then. 10 o'clock. the hour she was supposed to walk down the aisle. Nobody moved. Then Audrey took the envelope from Graham and held it against her chest. "I need to read everything," she said. I nodded. "Okay." "Not summaries. Everything." "Okay. And I need you not to make yourself the only victim." That hurt. It was also fair. I breathed through it. "Okay." 3 hours later, the wedding was officially postponed. The guests received lunch, apologies, and a story vague enough to satisfy no one. Vivian left without speaking to me. Preston tried to. He approached near the church entrance while Audrey was changing out of her dress. "Linda," he said. My name in his mouth felt like a hand on an old bruise. I turned. He looked tired. For a moment I saw not a villain but a man who had spent decades letting paperwork stand between himself and consequence. "I am sorry for your loss," he said. I smiled. "You said that already." His face tightened. "Back then things were complicated." "No," I said. "They were expensive." He looked away. "Good. Some men should spend the rest of their lives looking away." Audrey did not move in with me after that. I did not ask. She moved into a small apartment downtown, and we began meeting every Sunday at a coffee shop halfway between her world and mine. The first meetings were ugly. She asked why I kept Daniel's boots, but never showed her the settlement. I asked why she let Vivian erase me before I arrived. She said I made love feel like debt. I said she made success feel like abandonment. Both things were true. Truth is not always a bridge. Sometimes it is the river you both fall into before learning how to swim. Months later, Audrey brought the old wedding invitation and touched the word presents. "I don't think I understood what that meant," she said. "Most people don't." She looked at me. "Graham and I are still together. We're not rushing. But if we do get married, I want you there. I would like that. And I want you to speak. Your real speech," she said, "not the dead press release version." 6 months later, there was another ceremony, smaller. No senator, no hospital board. No Vivian controlling the flowers. Graham's parents were invited, but not honored. That distinction mattered. I walked Audrey down the aisle. Not because Daniel did not matter, because I was there. When the officiant asked who gave this woman, Audrey squeezed my hand. "She gives herself," Audrey said. Then she looked at me. "But she didn't get here alone." That was enough. At the reception, I gave the speech. I talked about Daniel teaching Audrey to ride a bike, about work shoes and school forms, and about the strange math of motherhood, how you can give everything and still owe an apology. Then I looked at my daughter. I used to think protecting someone meant hiding the sharp parts of the truth. I was wrong. The truth does not become softer because we bury it. It only waits underground and grows roots. The room was quiet, not uncomfortable, listening. I turned to Graham. "Love her honestly. She has had enough polished lies," Audrey cried openly. "Vivian did not attend. Preston did." He sat in the back and left before dessert. That was fine. Not every ending needs everyone seated at the same table. A year later, the Whitaker Foundation review became public. No arrests, no screaming headlines, just a pattern of settlements, sealed complaints, and safety shortcuts that made several important men retire early for health reasons. Preston's name came off a building. Daniel's name went onto a small trade scholarship. Audrey started with her own savings and money. Graham insisted his family contribute without attaching their name. At the ceremony, Audrey asked me to come. I wore the navy dress again. This time, nobody told me not to. Afterward, Audrey and I stood beside Daniel's framed photo. "I wish I knew him better," she said. "He would have liked your stubbornness." Did I get that from him? No, I said. That unfortunate gift is mine. She laughed, then grew serious. I'm still angry. I know. At you. I know. And at myself. That part. Don't keep too long, I said. Anger at yourself turns into shame if you feed it enough. I should have taught you that sooner. Audrey leaned her head lightly against my shoulder, not like everything was fixed, like something had survived. That is the part people do not tell you about winning. Sometimes you win the right to stand in the room, but you lose the version of your child who believed you were simple. Sometimes you win respect, but lose innocence. Sometimes one envelope saves your daughter from a lie and still cuts her with the truth. I do not regret sending it. I regret needing to. The cream envelope is in my closet now, beside Daniel's boots, and the speech Audrey let me give. Every once in a while I take it out and run my thumb over Graham's name, not because I am proud, because I need to remember the cost of silence. My daughter did not uninvite me from her life that day, only from her wedding. But if I had swallowed the truth one more time, I might have helped her build a marriage with the same bricks that buried her father. A mother can be embarrassing. A mother can be angry. A mother can be wrong. But she should never be quiet just because the room looks expensive. The people who are ashamed of where they came from are usually not running from poverty. They are running from the person who carried it for them. And sometimes, if they are lucky, that person is still parked 2 blocks away, waiting to be seen.